Today we're going to look at monopolistic competition, one of the market structures of the four market structures. In Economics 1, we looked at perfect competition and monopoly, which were the two extremes of market structures. Perfect competition, there are very many firms in the market. Monopoly, there's just one firm in the market. Perfect competition, it's very easy to enter the market. There are no barriers to entry. A monopoly, it's very difficult or impossible to enter the market. There are high barriers to entry. Monopolistic competition lies somewhere in between perfect competition and monopoly. Hence the name monopolistic competition. It possesses some characteristics of a monopoly and some characteristics of perfect competition. So in monopolistic competition, what exactly are the characteristics? There are many firms. In monopolistic competition, compared to perfect competition, which has very many firms, monopolistic competition has many firms, but not as many as perfect competition. The products are not exactly the same. The products are slightly different. They are differentiated in some way. This is the main assumption of monopolistic competition. This is the main characteristic of monopolistic competition. What types of industries has monopolistic competition? Basically, most shops, stores you see walking up and down the street or in a shopping center would fall under monopolistic competition. Let's say coffee shops. They all sell coffee, but their service is not exactly the same. Their beans are not exactly the same. The flavors they offer are not exactly the same. They are slightly different. The products are differentiated. Restaurants, they all serve you a meal, but there's different cuisines, different chefs, different specialities. Every restaurant is slightly different. Clothes, jewelry, mobile phones, mobile phone accessories. All of this would fall under monopolistic competition. The products are not identical like in perfect competition, they are slightly different. So it's a more day-to-day example of a market structure unlike perfect competition. Anything you see walking up and down the street, except for banks, which falls under oligopoly, which we'll discuss in the next topic, and groceries in Australia, which also falls under oligopoly. So apart from the banks that you see on the street or in a shopping center or grocery stores, and also, telecommunications companies, so not the actual mobile phones, but the mobile phone providers, the networks, telecom, banking, and groceries are the only shops that you see on the street which don't fall under this market structure. All the others that you see up and down the street fall under monopolistic competition. The products are slightly different. So the firm is still a price maker. Because the product is not exactly the same as the competitors' products, the firm has some ability to influence the price. Back in perfect competition, the firm has zero ability to influence the price because my product and Mr. X's product and Mr. Y's product are exactly the same. I can't differentiate between them. But in monopolistic competition, because my product is not the same, I have some degree of market power in monopolistic competition. I should add that the reason that there are many firms is there are low barriers to entry. Low or no barriers to entry. Because the firm is the price maker, the graph, the model in monopolistic competition is exactly the same as the model in a monopoly. The model in monopolistic competition is exactly the same as the model in a monopoly. The only difference is, because there are slightly different products on the market, and a monopoly there's just one unique product, the demand curve isn't as steep as in a monopoly. The demand curve is slightly flatter in monopolistic competition. So in a monopoly, if the demand curve looked as such, if that's the demand curve in a monopoly, and the horizontal demand curve is what we have in perfect competition, the demand curve in monopolistic competition is somewhere in between those extremes. The demand curve in monopolistic competition is not very steep, but not 100% horizontal either. So the firm is a price maker. It has some ability to influence the price in monopolistic competition. You can raise the price and not lose every single customer. Unlike perfect competition where you can't. The demand curve literally lies in between the extremes of monopoly and perfect competition. So you have some degree of market power in monopolistic competition. If you were to raise the price, you lose some customers, but you won't lose every single customer. Whereas in perfect competition, if you were to increase the price, the quantity demand would be zero. Nobody would buy your product. So the demand curve is downward sloping in monopolistic competition, which gives us pretty much exactly the same model as a monopoly, except that the demand curve is slightly flatter. Demand curve is slightly flatter than in monopoly's demand curve. Let's stick with this graph. Monopolistic competition. The firm is making profit in the short run. Since there are low barriers to entry or no barriers to entry in monopolistic competition, if these firms are making these supernormal profits, if these firms are making these above normal profits, then new firms will want to enter the market. And they can, because we've assumed that there are low or no barriers to entry. Firms are making these above normal or economic profits, which encourages other firms who are only earning normal profits at the moment to enter this industry. And since these barriers don't exist, the new firms can come into the market. Even though a new firm comes into the market, they can't offer exactly the same product. Every product is slightly different. You can't use someone else's brand name. If Just Jeans is making supernormal profit, I can't enter the jeans market and create a brand called Just Jeans. That's exclusively their brand. They've differentiated their product. One of the facets that differentiates their product is their brand name. So when I enter the market, I have to create a product which is slightly different legally. I can't copy their brand name. So if I were to enter the clothing market, when I enter the market, my product is by default slightly different. So these supernormal profits attract new firms into the industry. So what will happen in the long run? If the firm makes supernormal profit in the short run, what will happen in the long run? If the firm makes supernormal profit in the short run, what will happen in the long run? It will encourage new firms to enter the market, as there are no or low barriers to entry. So new firms enter the market as there are no or low barriers to entry. New firms offer slightly different products. And if the new firms are going to offer slightly different products, this will attract customers from the old firms. New firms enter the market, they offer a slightly different product, and thus they end up attracting customers from the old firms. Thus the old firms lose demand to the new firms. This is an important point when it comes to monopolistic competition. The old firms lose demand to the new firms. As new firms enter the market, they are offering a slightly different product. At least by brand name it will be differentiated. Maybe the flavor, maybe the style, maybe the services, maybe the features. So the new firms join the market with slightly different products, and they attract customers from the old firms. So the old firms start to lose demand, and then these customers move on to the new firms. So if the old firms are losing demand, then the old firms' demand curves will start to shift to the left. So what happens to this demand curve? It begins to slowly move towards the left. The demand curve of the firm, this demand curve, starts its journey towards the left. It starts to move inwards. As the demand curve starts to move to the left, what will happen to the price? As this demand curve starts to move to the left, why is it moving to the left? Well, the new firms are joined and they are attracting customers from the old firms. So the old firms are losing demand. So demand starts gradually getting smaller for the old firms. So the demand curve is moving left, this thick blue line. So what will happen to the price? The price will be dragged downwards. You can see that if this demand curve moved inwards, that price would become smaller, and that rectangle, which represents the supernormal profit, will begin to decrease as well. And new firms will keep joining until this rectangle has completely disappeared. So let's see what that looks like. As new firms join, demand shifts to the left for the old firms, and if this demand shrink until it equals 0. So what does the long run look like in monopolistic competition? What does the long run graph look like in monopolistic competition? Let's see. Demand has shifted to the left, so I'll call it demand curve D2. This is the original demand curve. D1. So the demand curve has shifted to the left. Firms will keep entering the market until economic profits, supernormal profits are 0. The only way to get economic profits of 0 is if the average total cost is equal to the price. So the average cost curve is the tangent at the current market price. The demand curve will keep shifting until the price and the average cost for this firm are equal. We'll call that ATC2. So the firm's demand curve has continued its shift to the left and is keep shifting to the left, and that rectangle has completely shrunk to an area of 0. The price is no longer above the average cost. The price and the average cost are now equal. The firm is making 0 economic profit.